We are so delighted today to have with us John Kane. I think everyone has heard John Kane's name, and I think every single one of us in this room has probably been to one of his premier properties at North Hills. If you haven't, I would encourage you to go. John Kane actually founded Kane Realty Corporation more than 35 years ago. Today, he is its CEO. He successfully led an organization that has developed sustainable mixed-use communities, regional malls, neighborhood and community centers, office buildings, health centers, you name it, he's pretty much responsible for it. His signature project is North Hills in Raleigh's Midtown district. He's a graduate of Wake Forest, has a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. He serves on so many panels, so many boards, you can't even begin to look at the list. One of them is the Raleigh-Durham Airport Authority. He also received a gubernatorial appointment to the State of North Carolina Economic Development Board. Today he's going to talk about North Hills and the success of that, and maybe some plans that he has for down the road, and also the role, hopefully, of government when it comes to development and economic growth. With that, I give you John Kane.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you. I got a lot of slides to go through, but I want this to be kind of interactive. So if something comes to mind you want to talk about that, please just speak up and we'll delve into whatever you want to talk about. This is about what you want to hear about, not what I want to talk about. Many of you are very familiar with what we're doing at North Hills, and many of you are familiar with the history of it. This is a slide probably taken, I'm going to guess, in the late, what would you say, Gene Boyce, late 60s, probably 69 or 70. So many of you remember, the mall is actually a very thriving mall. It was that through the 70s and into the 80s, and when Mr. Richards, the original developer, sold it in the early 80s as a part of his transaction to sell most of his properties, it was about a $300 million transaction, which in those days, that was real money. I mean, not that that's not real money today, but $300 million in 81 or 2 when it transacted was a lot of money. And North Hills Mall was kind of the shining star of that whole portfolio of things that he sold. And he sold that, as some of you probably remember, the KLM pension fund, the airline pension fund. And through the next really 15 years of ownership, North Hills Mall went kind of downhill. The area out in north of town, Wakefield, was in that portfolio. All of the property that's Weston Parkway, all that area was in the portfolio. And really nothing happened with any of it through KLM's ownership. It kind of just sat there stale. When they sold all those things, now we know what happened with Wakefield, with Weston, with all of that. It kind of, the area that is just taken off. So this was kind of a similar situation. One of the stories that I've heard, and Gene or others that have been here longer than I might know, but Mr. Richards apparently tried to get an interchange at Laster Mill Road, and he would have his contractors go up there and kind of make the ramps on and off up there to try to get them to do that, but they never did do that. And I think, in my opinion, some of us live inside the Beltline. Not having that as an interchange is a real blessing, because you can get from inside the Beltline up into the North Hills area without having to fight, an interchange and all of the inconveniences of that. But you can see from this aerial, it wasn't much else developed around there, but it was a pretty popular place, because I don't see too many empty spaces out there. This is kind of what it looked like when we bought it. You can see the new white roofs over on the north side, which is where Total Wine is now, and Harris Teeter went in there. That was the first thing we did. Many of you remember the old First Citizens Bank branch that was there, and the post office that was there for many, many years. And then they came and built, of course, this branch here that replaced that old branch there for First Citizens. And this is before First Citizens bought this building, and before we started buying all of these properties over here. One of the real mistakes, I think, that was made by the KLM pension fund, they kept trying to redevelop this property, and they tore down this grass, there it is. This grassy area here was where K&W Cafeteria was. And K&W Cafeteria was a really, really popular cafeteria. And so they had this grandiose plan, KLM did, to come redevelop this, and so they pulled the trigger on tearing the K&W down, and then they never did anything. I mean, it was for those that remember that, I don't know why in the world they did that, but it was a mistake, for sure. So this was after we had torn them all down. Obviously, the JCPenney stayed there. throughout that, and the Exxon station is still operating. The bank, Wells Fargo now, was here. Kind of an interesting backdrop here was that First Union owned this building and actually owned that real estate. This Wachovia, now Wells Fargo, was leased from North Hills or KLM Pension Fund. So when those two banks merged, you would have thought they would have taken this key corner here and made that their main branch, if you will. They didn't. They made this that, and it was back to this Laster Mill Road issue, because these customers could get in here and go back this way or come this way and get there much easier than you could get in here. And we ironically ended up buying this from Wells Fargo, Wachovia at the time, many years later, and that was a real key piece for us to be able to kind of get the east side of the road, if you will, to have that to be redeveloped. Another kind of a war story, if you will, J.C. Penney, our deal with the seller of this was that you've got to get J.C. Penney to allow us to do mixed-use development, not be in a closed mall still, and they can't unreasonably withhold approval of us. And lawyers like Gene and others know that can be very difficult. At Penny's, I'd had 6 Penny stores. I knew how difficult, quite frankly, they were to deal with. And so they were able to, Penny negotiated $2.5 million out of them, and they got 6 more 5-year options at the same rate that Mr. Richard signed the lease for in the 1960s. So it was $1.07 a foot. And they owned this Firestone building out here was also under this lease here. So we were in the process of getting them to approve our plan, and we'd gone back and forth, and they were in their 5-year option periods. And you have to give notice that you're going to exercise your option in writing per this lease. And they missed an exercise of that notice. And I realized that one Friday I was in the office late, and I said, today is when they're supposed to do that. I went and ran to the fax machine. This was back when we actually used faxes. And there was nothing in there. And I waited for a week, and I wrote them a letter. And I said, so sorry that you all are not renewing. We've enjoyed having you here. Please broom sweep when you move out. And that was, needless to say, not well received. They had passed on going to Triangle Town Center and had stayed here because this store has always been a very successful store for them. But it enabled me to negotiate a new lease with them, got rid of this old Firestone building here that was an eyesore and an environmental issue, and I ended up with a much more favorable lease with Penny. We actually had to decide, do we really want to play hardball and run them out, because we really didn't want to keep them. But we knew they were going to sue us and we would be tied up for a long period of time, so we ended up just doing a new lease. But that lease is up in about 4 months, and they've got one 5-year option, and then after that, it's our game, and we will tear it down and we will rebuild that area with something other than J.C. Penney. So they'll be gone one day soon. This was the coming up out of the ground with the steel. That's the Target building on the lower level. And then kind of the first phase, if you will. You can see now the post office is gone and the First Citizens are relocated to their round building across the street. Just another progress point there. These were the Alexan, which we still own the retail. We sold the residential units, but this was the first heated and cooled enclosed corridors in the market. And so it was very difficult to get a study done with comps in the market, because at the time our rent comps were probably 85 to 90 cents per square foot per month. So if you were renting a 1,000 square foot unit, that would mean it would be $850 a month is what that would cost you. We needed to get about $1.20 a foot for this to work, so we were well above market and had to get comps in Dallas. There was one in Charlotte that had been done at Phillips Place, but it was real true pioneering when we did this, and it ended up actually transacting at a record per unit price when it traded. And again, we kept the retail but sold to UBS the residential units. A lot of lessons learned along the way in doing mixed use. My background had been really in doing mostly retail, even though I'd done a couple of hotels and some office buildings. But in this particular case, we joint ventured the residential with Trammell Crow Residential, and we did the retail ourselves. And there's the parking deck is in the center. It's all key fob access, and Crow was pretty tough on us, saying, no, we want that to be only accessible to our residents. And as a result of of that, and back to the introduction of talking about some of the regulatory issues, the issues that we run into, City of Raleigh was requiring, X number of parks per bedroom, and it was way over parked. And so we ended up putting, 300 units in there, and all of that parking is enclosed and only accessible to the residents themselves. And at $20,000 a parking space, that's expensive parking. Well, 30% of that parking has never been used and never will be used. And it's, I can't think about it because it drives me crazy, but it's, it's one of those mixed use, nightmares that was very difficult to do. From then on, all of the other units that we've done ourselves, and so it's all shared parking, meaning that anybody can use that. So it was a tough lesson, but one that we needed to learn. The hotel, we had always planned for the hotel to go where it is, even though it came online about 4 years later than when the first phase came online. But this property has just been a shining star. It was a 2010 Hotel of the Year, voted on by the customers for amongst about 60,000 Marriott products throughout the world. So that was quite a thrill, and it has a 4-diamond award. We actually sold this along with the Hyde House. I didn't want to sell them, but my hotel partner, who was the expert, said, you'll never get, this per key price is just beyond belief. We've got to transact. And so we did. I don't think this can be replicated. I still wish we owned it, what we didn't. It's interesting, though, who bought it. Adia bought it, who is the sovereign fund for Abu Dhabi. And they own hotels throughout our country. So I had some reservations about selling it to those particular people, too, but I guess my partner talked me into it, obviously. So, obviously it's this hotel, interestingly, we get almost every single hockey team that's visiting. So you see people out there hanging out, getting autographs and stuff, which is kind of cool. We like that. And when they had the hockey all-star game here a few years back, actually all the players and their families all stayed with us, even though the activities were downtown and at the RBC, or now PNC Center. But they wanted to stay here because of the mixed-use environment where they could, walk to things and do things, and it was nice having them there. We started buying up on the east side of the street after we got them all under contract, and you could tell from those previous pictures that I've shown, it was in a pretty bad state of affair. We first bought the old office building that was right here. That was the first property we bought, and that was a real key because I knew if I had a signal here, no matter what else I got, I'd be okay with that. And then we fortunately, over a period of 6 years, were able to buy 18 properties on the east side of the street. And I tell the story that the Comfort Inn which was renting rooms by the hour, half hour, however long you wanted, it was sitting right here, and he was a holdout. It was an Indian gentleman by the name of Patel. I think they all that own hotels are all named Patel. But I had a straw man working him for years, and finally he figured out who it was, and I paid him so much money for that hotel. It was only one acre. He only had 60 rooms in there. I think I paid him $4 million for it. And a resident back here had a ranch house that they had bought for $200, and I bought that one for $850. So the capital system, free market system worked. It worked very well. But it's interesting because many of you may remember we were fought tooth and nail with the site plan approval for the first go-around. It was as nasty as any approval fight that I've ever had with the neighborhood. And this go-around here, when we were rezoning this, it was the largest entitlement in the history of Raleigh, and it was voted on unanimously. It was so quiet going through that I was at the podium presenting the case, and the mayor, who was Mayor Meeker at the time, he said, "Now, John, how tall a building can you build here with this rezoning?" I said, "Well, Mayor, it'd be 35 stories." And he said, "Whoa." He had no idea. He had not even been following the case because it was that far under the radar. We didn't have one dissenting vote, not one dissenting neighbor in the whole entitlement of that. So it was really interesting how those neighbors embraced us. Obviously, it was because the home values across the street had gone up 30, 40, 50%. So those that had fought us before had now become our friends. So it's kind of interesting how that works. This construction that's going on here was the Cap Trust Tower on the front here, which is about a $90 million project, and then Park and Market, where the Harris Teeter moved from over here to here. That was also about a $100 million project, and both those started in 2008. probably two of the last things that got capitalized in our market. And so we brought them online in 2010, and we all remember what that economy looked like in 2010. But we weathered that storm and got through it, and were able to actually make both these projects work. It worked out very well. We've done very well with both of them. But that really spurred the east side of the street. We also didn't get any economic help back again to the city and from the city or from the county or from the state. All the off-sites, all the improvements that we did, we don't have a nickel of public money in here. So all the road work that you see that got done, all the traffic signals, all the widening of roads, all of that was paid for with private funds. So there's no public help. I'm not crying. I'm just, that just is what it is. We were Gold LEED. Jeannie and I were talking about sustainability earlier. This is the first high-rise Gold LEED project in North Carolina. So we were proud of that. We have a lot of, different other sustainable issues that we do around the properties. This property, if you notice next time you're over, this is 5 acres. There are over 3 miles of corridors in this building, and it's just massive. I mean, the building is just so big, and so breaking it up architecturally was an interesting challenge. And we chose to, mainly from my travels in Europe, as things got built over there, they got built vertically, by this. So Fred built one, and Jane built one, and John built one, and they just kind of went up like that. So all the buildings read like this, which I think is much more authentic looking than breaking the building up horizontally, the way a lot of architects do. So this building is designed that way. You see the different features. It's almost like somebody just built different things together. So that was a very intentional way of breaking the building up. The Hide House came online, I guess we've been open 3 years now. This is an extended stay product that has full kitchens in there, and we have a 24-hour Harris Teeter across the street. The American Anesthesiology Association is actually in the Cap Trust building, and anesthesiologists, those that are, I see my old doc over there, Dr. Miller, those that are in the doctorate know they have to get certified every 5 years, I think it is. Does that sound right? And so they come here and spend a week and have to go through these, these examiners, to make sure they maintain their license. Well, that's their livelihood. It's pretty important that they pass that. But this extended stay stays full of the anesthesiologists because they're studying and kind of got their heads down working to make sure they pass this. So it's been a nice property for that. We also bought inside the Beltline this property here. Inside the Beltline where Terra East, many of you remember that, and the Lantern Apartments. And we did a for sale product in part of that, and then we just opened the Alistair, which we just transacted actually this past year. That went for, let's see, $215 per unit, which is a lot. It was a good price. But that's been a good product. It's worked out very, very well. This is Midtown Green. This fronts the park and has also done very, very well. The park we designed and built, and again, this was private funds to do this. Thomas Sayer designed the park for us and did a really good job. We wanted something that was going to be aesthetically pleasing, that had an art feature to it, but also something that was very functional, that we could have, lots of different things. And this, I don't know if any of you have been out there, but we have lots of music venues. We have fitness Wednesdays. We have lots of different activities here. They're all free and open to the public, and it's great for the sales for the restaurants. It's okay for the retailers. It's problems for those that are looking for parking space that aren't there for that. But you get what you pay for. So, but we have lots of different events. Our event team does. We have 6 people that are full-time employees that work on nothing but events. We did 436 events last year. We'll do more than that this year. And again, they're all open to the public. Some of you have probably been for our beach music series, which runs for about 20 weeks on Thursday nights. That was particularly rewarding to me, particularly in the downturn when people were struggling and out of work, because people could come up there and not have to spend a nickel and could enjoy a night out and just kind of hang out. And you see people of all walks of life, from grandparents there with grandchildren to teenagers to everything in between. So it's fun seeing that many people in a diverse environment enjoying that. This is an aerial of not too long ago, before we started most of the construction on the east side of the street. We have a lot of outdoor dining, a lot of different products that we've done up there. When I was being interviewed earlier for the radio broadcast, my friend there asked me about the mall, and I said, well, it's not a mall. Mall's a four-letter word to me. We tore the mall down. We've worked hard not to be a mall. We are not that. We're a district, and we're now being referred to as not only North Hills, but the center kind of Midtown. It's interesting kind of looking back, though. This shows what the plan was for the east side of the street. And even though it's changed and adapted, this was a plan we did back in '04 when we were doing the original land planning. And it's changed, but it hadn't changed a lot. And as I go through more slides, I'll kind of show you where it has changed a little bit as the market has kind of responded to what we've done, and we've responded to how the market has treated us. One of the things that we really value about our retailers is they offer there are a lot of owners in the stores. We're very differentiated from a Crabtree or the other malls around the country that are, quite frankly, just become homogenous. I don't think there are no local retailers. Maybe Lee's Taylor at Crabtree maybe is local, but beyond that, there aren't any. I mean, Varsity Menswear was in there, and Harry moved out and moved in with us before we retired. But you see these names here. We certainly have our share of the nationals for sure, but we've also got lots of locals that are also in there. So we think that's kind of a differentiator for us versus a mall experience. We're very excited that Capital Grille's actually coming. They're going to be coming in. We've been chasing Capital Grille for 10 years, and they've been turning the market down in general, just saying Raleigh's not ready for us yet. And we signed a lease with them this year. Those that don't know, they are the premier steakhouse, white tablecloth steakhouse in the country. So they'll be going in the Bank of America Tower. I'm not sure why that's in there. I think it's just a cool photo, but lots of cranes. So we have 6 projects going on the east side of the street, totaling about $500 million right now concurrently. The Bank of America Tower, Bank of America just signed a lease with us, so their name will be going on the top of this building. Their sister companies, or Merrill Lynch and Trust Company, are also moving in with us, so all will be leaving where they are downtown. I think Merrill Lynch and U.S. Trust being in the Wells building didn't sit too well with BofA since they own them. So I think they were glad to get them out of that building and get them on a building with their name on it. So we're excited about having them here. This building was designed by 2 ex-Caesar Pelli veterans that also did the Bank of America Tower in downtown Charlotte. They did the Trust Tower in downtown, Frost Tower in downtown Austin. Teron Duda and Jeff Payne, really talented architects, and we're really excited about them. So Capital Grille will be coming into this restaurant right here on the right as you come into the entry there, and we're close to a deal for a nice upscale restaurant where it says Fish. That is not the name of it. Could be, but that's not intended to be that. But kind of some cool things with the lighting that we did here going into this lobby. And this building, similar to Cap Trust, first floor retail or restaurants, and then 7 levels of deck, and then the offices start on the 8th floor. So even the 8th floor has about the top part of where the First Citizens building is, has the great views of downtown and other places. It's a handsome building, I think. We've tried to shroud the decks in all of our cases where it kind of fits into the design of the building, so it's not an eyesore like so many parking decks are, but it's still got to function. And hopefully this is going to turn out nicely.
What number floors that one's going to be?
That's 18 floors. And please interject any thoughts or comments. I feel like I'm just kind of running on here, but so I do want to talk about what y'all want to talk about. This is another view up from the park, actually look at the Bank of America Tower. 18 stories, 237 feet tall, 300,000 feet. LEED design. Hopefully we'll get LEED. I think we'll either get silver or gold LEED for this building. This is a project that's underway. We hired Thomas Sayer to do this as well, and this is a walkway that'll go up from in between, right up where Cowfish is, if you know where that is, in the Cap Trust building, and the Bank of America Tower. So we've had so much construction going on. If you were trying to go to Coquette or somewhere on the other side of the street, you had to get in your car, and we're trying to be very pedestrian friendly. So this is a new walkway we're putting in. The steel sculpture there is up on Six Forks now. That went up last week. And that walkway will be finished up in the next few weeks. So hopefully that will encourage people to walk and make that a much more friendly experience. The Dartmouth apartments will be finished in June of this year. We started leasing on that last week. We don't have any retail. It's the first one we've done that's just strictly 5-story apartments, so there's no retail here. And that's going in right at the corner of Camelot and St. Albans, so kind of in that back corner there. Smaller units here, a little more kind of hip and chic. We're trying to get a price point, even though they're still expensive per foot, with the smaller units, trying to get a price point down to where it can make it a little more affordable for those that are willing to kind of downsize to smaller units, but still want to be in a mixed-use environment. So you can see kind of some hip and kind of cool contemporary, 171 units, 5-story. It does have its own parking within. This parking actually is just for these residents, but we're not overparking it, or we hope we're not overparking it. That is. But we do have Zipcar though. So for those that don't know what Zipcar is that you just sign up for that, and then you can go just take that car and go take it where you want to, and you pay for however you use it. So it's kind of a cool thing. It's typically in downtowns or in heavily urban areas. So we're seeing people. We have some people living there now that don't have cars, which is interesting with Uber and with other things. Yeah.
Specific to that, Zipcars, the Uber, and the trend toward folks not owning vehicles, can you talk a little bit about your interaction with Capital Transit, the county, and the city of Raleigh Transit, and also with traffic regarding those interchanges and all of your projects?
Be happy to. I actually had the honor of serving on the transit board of the 70 or so of us that served on that. I'm on the airport board, and they asked me to serve on that. So I was involved with that whole process of trying to kind of redo the Wake Transit plan. So I'm very favorable toward it. I hope you all will get behind the half-cent sales tax. I know a lot of you probably were opposed to increased taxes, and I generally am opposed to that too. But we have got to do something with our transit program here. It's out of control, and nobody's on these buses because it's not what people want to use. So I'm very bullish on the new system. It's got more than 20 miles of BRT, bus rapid transit, and that experience is more like a train experience than it is like a bus experience. It'll be, you'll step right onto it from the curb level. They'll have Wi-Fi on the buses. It'll be an experience that I, quite frankly, will use myself. I think many of you would use that. They're going to have 15-minute service from, meaning it's going every 15 minutes from downtown to North Hills and a couple of other locations too. So I come down here fairly often for zoning or whatever meetings at the city. I'm looking forward to not having to fight with, parking both places and being able just to come here and be on the bus. I think you're going to see people actually using that when we get it out there, and also by having BRT and buses is something we can implement much faster. And you don't have to have dedicated bus lines. You can and you should in some cases, but you can do that where they can run dedicated when it's dedicated and run, just on the regular street when they are. So it's something that can be implemented much sooner.
What is BRT?
Bus rapid transit. It's a methodology of bus travel that's much more like a train than like a bus. To answer your question about traffic, the headline that we got a few weeks ago in the paper, I don't know if you read the article, the headline wasn't particularly favorable, but the article was pretty favorable. So, we can't control what our friends at the News Observer do, but the traffic here in a mixed-use environment works pretty darn well, mainly because people are, it's not like an office park where everybody's coming at 8 or 8:30 in the morning and leaving at 5 o'clock. They're living there, they're staying in the hotels, they're working in the offices, but they're meeting somebody for dinner or they're doing something different. So you don't have as much of the peak stuff that you do like in an office environment. So that really helps, I think, with our traffic. I'm not denying that there are not places that you probably want to avoid at 5:30 on Monday afternoon, probably particularly going left into the old mall site. It queues pretty badly, but if those that are local know to go the back way and go around Ramblewood and come in that way, and it's pretty easy. And one of the things that's a benefit, I think, to this whole area, unlike Crabtree, which has pinch points that really can't be dealt with because it's too expensive, the solutions won't work, there are a lot of ways in and out of here. And so people that are local know that. I'm not going to go there at 5:30, I'm going to go another way if I'm going up there. So I think there are ways around that. Did I answer all? I'm not sure I got all of them.
I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
You mentioned, do you have what data, could you share the data as to the number of people who choose to work in Midtown and then choose to also live there?
I wish I did have that data, and that's something we need to try to pull together, because as we build more units, and they're all leasing up, or we wouldn't be building them. So people are living there for a lot of different reasons, and it's interesting who does live there, because it's not just young singles. It's my mother-in-law, until she moved to Springmore, was 83. She lived in Park and Market. My son, who was 27 and unmarried at the time, he lived at Park and Market. So they live in there for different reasons, but they both really like it, and they're parts of the experience they like. I have people asking me all the time, when are you going to build some condos up here? Because I really would like to buy and build up there, and that's something we're thinking about. But the residential rental units that we're building are really nice units. So, I think Dr. Miller's son lives at Midtown Green. So, I mean, most of the people that are renting today are renters by choice. They're not renters by need. They can afford most anything they want to relative to buying versus renting. The quality is much nicer. The finishes are better. The appliances are nicer. The places, quite frankly, I'd love to live in a lot of the units that we're building.
Is there any upfront analysis of what type of businesses you want there that will pay enough so that people who can afford to live there can work there?
Yeah, I mean, our retail mix, having a background in retail, our retail mix, our merchandising mix is very important to us. So we're not just signing deals to sign deals. Obviously they're going to have to pay the freight or it won't work. But we try to be very deliberate and sensitive to the retailers that we have, and make sure that we're not just upscale. I mean, JCPenney and Target are not just upscale. They're not. They're things you can buy in Target that many of us would wear or use or whatever. But we also have high-end boutiques. We have Lululemon, we have Anthropologie, we have Gina Chandler.
I mean, the people who can afford to live there,
Oh.
would their businesses be right there that they could work at? Or would they have a job?
I see what you're saying. I'm sorry. They're all walks of life. I mean, there's some that live in our apartments that walk across the street to the Cap Trust building every day, and there are others like the CFO of Duke Health, Duke Medicine, lives at the election and commutes to Durham every day. I mean, he can live anywhere he wants to. He likes living there. So it's really it's hard to say. I wish I had the answer to your question, and we'll probably try to work harder to figure that out. But it's always changing. People moving in, moving out too. So it's kind of.
I was curious as to the data, if that was a target demo with your marketing plan.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for a lot of people, the convenience of where they work and where they live are important. For others, it's just, I want this environment. It's kind of interesting, all the people that are moving in here. Well, we have 63 a day that are either born here or moving in here from out of market. We had a job that we recruited for nationally to be manager of this whole place a few years ago. And so we had a recruitment team out there finding folks. And we ended up hiring the guy that was the manager of Columbus Circle in New York City. It's probably the most complex mixed-use place that I've ever seen. I'm sure there's some that have seen more, but this was an amazing, complicated project. We hired the guy. He moved down here, and where do you think he moved? He moved to Cary. I'm going, you got to be kidding me. I mean, you moved to Cary. I mean, he had an hour and 15-minute commute every day from wherever he lived, and when he was in New York, he thought this is nothing, 20 minutes, I said, I don't get it, You're in a mix, you can I have zero commute. Where Gene lives and where I live, I could be at North Hills in about 3 minutes, so interesting. But my point is that people move here that have hour-and-a-half commutes. They look at Wake Forest and Chapel Hill and Holly Springs, and they look at everything. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, can I take you back to your transit discussion a minute ago about the BRTs and how it would be helpful to have dedicated lanes for that kind of system to go forward with that? I'm curious about that because as I go around town these days, I'm looking at all this dedicated bike lanes that we've now converted from automobile or bus traffic, and I have yet to see a single biker at any one of those lanes. And it's symbolic, in my opinion. But I'm curious, did your transit board have any?
We didn't have a conversation about bike lanes at all. I wish we had, because I think it's a mistake, quite frankly. I understand the theory behind it. The theory behind it is you've got to build them to create the atmosphere that you're bike friendly, and then people will use it. But I mean, that's the theory behind it, as I understand it. Bonner Gaylord is our manager of all this. He's also a city councilor, so we banter about this from time to time. I mean, they made the change for those that live inside the Bell Line and come up. They took out 2 lanes at the right just beyond Ramblewood Drive, going across the overpass there, and it backs up all the time, and people are blaming us, and we didn't do anything. They just put this bike lane in, and they took a lane away, and it's not working. And I'm like you, I hadn't seen a bike on it anyway. We love to have bikes at North Hills, but they're just people not using them. So I agree with you.
Well, and I don't know if you saw the internet this morning, there's some talk about putting in a bike, like it's a rental system or something.
Yeah.
And what I found really intriguing about the whole thing is it said it was going to cost, I don't know, $360,000 a year.
Yeah.
Yet in Charlotte, they don't have any, they don't subsidize it. So here we go again, we're going to throw some more money, at least apparently that money as well, to try to encourage somebody to go use those lanes, I guess.
I guess. And how much money did we spend putting those lanes in? Golly day. I mean, it's a lot of money. So, yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
Another one. I know very little about this, but it looks like developers are driving this because it's an opportunity. Do you feel any, not pressure, but calls from, let's say, the town to go to less lucrative areas to develop them, like near the bus station in downtown Raleigh? Because you're going to have more of the disconnect between the nice areas and the less nice areas. You got any calls from the
Yeah, I mean, we enjoy recycling. We like to do recycling and try and find something that's underutilized and do something better with it. That's really what this is. The Stanhope project that we did on Hillsborough Street, which is student housing with 30,000 feet of retail, that's what that was. And we worked hard to make that kind of fit into the fabric of NC State University, and it's done very, very well. We were really pleased with that. The Dillon project that we're working on across from where the train station is under construction, we're trying to fit in the fabric of the warehouse district there, preserve the Dillon sign and the Dillon brick and that kind of stuff, and build in that area. So we're always looking for opportunities, and the city has some of those from time to time. We have a really good relationship with the city. We work hard at that relationship just like they do. I mean, we work with the city on the Dillon deal to do a public-private partnership with the parking. So we're building over 1,000 parking spaces, and the Dillon doesn't need anywhere near that. But they had a real need. The city had a real need for parking, particularly for the train station. That they had no resolution for that, and so it worked out nice for both of us to be able to work together on that. The Cardinal at North Hills is a CCRC, continuing care retirement community. So seniors, this is a rental, 168 rental units. It's well underway. The first units will be delivered to residents in, I think, late September. And this has been a long time coming. This is a product. This is not our project. This is Kisco, who has some other properties in town in the senior communities. But they do a good job with that, and we're excited about having this here. It's a little bit unique in that most of the senior communities are in outlying areas and they're kind of isolated, where this is going to be in the middle of North Hills. It's strategically at kind of the end of something, so it's not right in the middle of all the activity, but you're close enough to the activity that if you have a grandchild coming to visit, there's stuff for them to do, for you to do with them. So we think it's going to be, it's 100% leased, so it's been pretty well received. Yeah.
This is a metal construction?
Yes, it is.
Where the rest are wood constructions?
That's right. The question is this metal construction? Is there metal studs throughout this building? So the issue there is noise, and between the units. All the units that we built to date, other than the one I'll tell you about in a minute, have been stick built. So there is attenuation between those units and those stick builts, and this will have steel studs through it, so the sound should be measurably better. They'll have several dining places here. They'll also have skilled care and assisted care if you have need for that. So, like most of the others do have. This is interesting. I share this at this point only because we did this watercoloring back around 2004. So it's 12 years old, and this was kind of the vision at the time of what we kind of saw all three areas built out on the three of the four quadrants of the interchange that we're involved with. And it has changed, but it hadn't changed a whole lot. So most of kind of what we saw, the building types that we're building with being residential or office may have changed, but really the vision has pretty much stayed the same. So we just broke ground on the AC Hotel. That's go back. That's actually right in between the Dartmouth Apartments that I spoke about a minute ago and the Bank of America Tower here. So this is topped out, and Bank of America will be moving in I think May. Capitol Grill is going on that corner there, and then these units will be delivering for occupancy in June, and the hotel is just now coming. It's been working on for about 3 months, but it's moving along. AC, for those that don't know, that product is a brand that Marriott bought a few years ago, and it's kind of one of the hottest flags in the country right now. They've opened in New Orleans and Cincinnati, and I think they've sold 220 or more units. It's a more contemporary, it's their kind of edgy look for the millennials that are the answer to a Loft or W and some of the other brands that you'd be familiar with. It's kind of a European-based deal. The rooms are a little bit smaller, but very well appointed and very nice. We're going to do a rooftop bar up on the top up here, which we're excited about there at the 7th level. So something that we think is going to be well received. Again, a little more edgy, a little more contemporary. It'll have full service breakfast in the morning, but it's not a full service hotel. So it's a limited service. 133 rooms. We're really excited about this. I think it's going to be great. Midtown Plaza is well underway. That's a 12-story building. We've topped the steel out for most of that building. SunTrust is also going in this building, so it'll have an Allscripts sign on the top and a SunTrust sign on the top as well. Allscripts took 9 of the 12 floors, and that's what motivated us to start this building when we already had 300,000 feet under spec with the Bank of America Tower, and then SunTrust took the 10th floor, so we got 2 floors left to lease on that building. This is a little more straightforward. It's a 12-story building. The parking is not integrated. There are actually 2 adjacent parking decks beside Apostles Church, if you know where that is, in between that building. So this is going to be a nice relief for us because this building is not going to have mixed use in it, and those decks will be available for during event times and other things when things are going on very close to the park, so people can actually have a little more flexibility with their parking. This is Park Central. This building is also under construction. There's a tower crane up on that site. Now, this is the first residential building that we'll do that'll be concrete and steel. So the first 5 levels here will be stick built, and that'll be about half the units, and then this from here up will be concrete and steel. So it's our way of kind of sticking our toe in the water, because we're going to have to get probably $2.25 a foot to make this work. You know, Sky House downtown, for those of you that are not familiar with that, 23-story, first high-rise residential building for rent done in Raleigh, was a big deal. We were glad somebody else was pioneering that and not us, because we've kind of done our share. But we're going to try to take the market to the next level. We're going to try to take it up another notch. Concierge services here, much nicer, everything that we're doing with the finishes, with the ceiling heights, with the appliances, with everything else. So we think the market's ready for that, and hopefully it'll be well received. So we'll be delivering this in late 2017. We're also doing 30,000 feet of retail in here. And when we started laying this out, I never thought retail would work this far into the site off of Six Forks Road, but we don't have a foot of space available on the east side. And so we're doing 30,000 more feet. We're actually doing 2-level restaurants in some of these spaces. It will be pre-leased for them to have both levels. We're not doing a second level by itself. So we're kind of pushing the market there again. But we think the experience of looking out over the park when there are events going on with somebody just having a glass of wine or eating dinner or whatever outside up there will be well received.
That's going to be rental and it's still not ownership.
Correct. That's rental as well. Yeah. So 286 units, about 152 mid-rise, 134 high-rise. So 30,000 feet of retail. We're doing some different things here, so we'll see how the market responds to that.
How many stories is that one?
That's 15. The next tower, appropriately named Tower 4, because it would be the 4th tower that we built for office, We won't build that until we have a tenant for it. We chased Red Hat for that. We chased RBC back before they built downtown. We chased JetBlue. We chased Fannie and Freddie when they were looking, but we haven't landed anybody yet. So this is already previous. It's approved site. And interesting story on GE. As all of you know, GE. We were in the running for GE, and as a market, and they ended up going to Boston, which was great. But we were in the top 3 or 4. Charlotte got kicked out and we didn't. Atlanta got kicked out and we didn't. So it was pretty interesting that we were in the running for that. We could have built this building for them just like they wanted it. They didn't even look at this site. The only site they looked at was our building, the Dillon building in the warehouse district, because they wanted to be in the warehouse district. I just thought that was pretty interesting. That's, they ended up taking, property in Boston. I guess it's in their warehouse district up there, but they wanted that to attract the millennial type employee.
Why specifically the warehouse district as opposed to Midtown?
We couldn't even get them to look at this, and yet they were all over the Dillon site. That was the only thing they looked at was the Dillon site downtown. I think it was because I think from what was told to me, and I didn't talk to them directly, was that they really feel like that's what the millennial wants, and that's who they're trying to attract. Is they want this kind of hip feel, that's kind of cool. This was the headquarters. Yeah. Now they looked at all 3. There were 3 different groups, headquarters plus 2 more groups, and all 3 were looking. But as I understand it, the only decision's been made is the headquarters moved to Boston. So, is there a long shot that we get back at the table with them for some? I don't know.
That one's going just east of Park Central. To the
The building right here is Cap Trust. Okay, that's Cap Trust Tower right there. And this building is here, so it's the entry there. It's where the Christmas tree lot has been the last few years, if you've noticed that.
the Christmas tree building, right?
Yeah, the Christmas. Yeah, we kind of felt like we could probably do more with that lot. So, those are parking decks where you see the green on the side of that. So I don't know that we'll do that, but we'll do something that'll be hopefully attractive for that.
Is that foliage or is that just design, building design itself?
It's foliage the way it's designed there, but again, this building isn't designed yet. We have it to a certain level that we can try to show it, but whoever comes in and leases 300,000 square feet, we'll mold the clay with them so they can get exactly what they want. Yeah. That's laid out for 450,000 feet, 25 stories. We could actually go up more if somebody wanted it with the approvals that we have. So this is what's left to go. We've talked about a lot of this, but the Cardinal is under construction, Midtown Plaza is under construction, Park Central is under construction. All the rest of those are under construction with the exception of the buildings that are up in the front. So we now have plans, in addition to Tower 4, another office tower here, 2 more residential towers here, probably another hotel on the other side of the Hyatt, and then 1 more building down here that's not shown. So that's kind of what's left to do at North Hills.
Do we have access to something like that?
It's on our website.
It is in it?
Mm, yeah.
It's called the North Hills Expansion?
Yeah, if you just go look on the website, it's on there.
Okay.
So that's it. I'm happy to answer more questions or talk more.
It seems like every article we read and want to know about development, it always comes back to density. And it seems like Raleigh is not willing to build for density. But yet you've done it at North Hills. An example comes to mind when the fellow was going to redevelop where the restaurant sits at where 12 Books used to be, and he was going to build a high-rise, and somebody complained about it, and he decided not to do it. It just seems to me that you need height in order to create enough foot traffic to support retail.
Well, you do, and the comp plan that the city redid just a couple of years ago kind of deals with that issue. It's the first time the comp plan has been updated in, I think, 25 years or so. And, we were one of the dense nodes, as well as downtown was a dense node. And I think the fact that the transit connectivity that they're doing is a good thing, too. So I think for the right projects that the town is behind density. I mean, they obviously approved what we're doing, all the things that I showed you are approved. It's not, we don't need a further approval for that. So I think they do in the right places, I guess, is my feeling.
Any designs on the property between the Cardinal down to behind the Hilton? Is that still owned by this guy?
We have one of those pieces under long-term ground lease, the Gaddy piece, which is 13 acres. The Andrews piece, which is owned by the Andrews Trust, is on the market right now. We're bidding on that like many other people are. And I think that'll probably transact. Most of that's being done with a contingency on zoning because the property is not currently zoned what it would need to be for them to get the pricing that they want.
Property was the second one?
The Andrews Trust, yeah, they own 5 pieces they've been publicly advertised, so it's open. Everybody knows about it. And they've already been out for bids, and they're in the second round. I don't think it'd be as dense. Yeah, I don't think it'd be as dense.
Mr. Kane, it's a fascinating presentation. Thank you. John Kane from